So we're here to talk through this balance loop by Grant Fikes. It doesn't have any balance loop number clues, but it does emphasize the white equals the same length, black equals different length rules, and so is a good puzzle to highlight. There's a kind of deduction that's going to stem out of each of the four corners, which is that the corner has to be larger than one out in each side. If it were only one in each side and this immediately turned would close off. So every one of these corners has to start with at least two cell lengths coming out from it. And in the upper left and lower right, this will give us the next steps right away. In the upper left, it has passed through another white loop section, so it has to turn with this being 2 and this being 2. This has to come out like so. These loops have to dodge themselves. We get to a point like this where this white circle also now has to turn. We now have made a new corner, and actually with this new corner, again, it can't just come out one length. If it does, it would turn here, this would turn here, would come back, form another square. So it does this. We've formed another corner. White cell, it's got to come at least down 1. We now see it actually comes across 3 because it's formed a connection here. So we will mark all of these. Coming over to this side, every time we cross into a black circle, we have to recognize there'll be different lengths. And so if there's 1 to the right of this black circle, there must be at least 2 to the left. So this has to go one more circle out. We're now at a case where this white has hit this white, and so there's a mode where it keeps going. If it keeps going, it must go exactly 6 to double it, but this can't keep going 6 in this direction. So we're at a place where this has to quickly turn, and just like in the lower left, it's made a square. It looks like this. Black's going to come up. A black always has 2 different lengths, so if this is 1, this other direction has to be at least 2. This turns up. This has to go 1 more in some direction, but let's actually think about what it's going to do. Right now, there are 2 ends it can connect with, and it's not going to connect with this one, so it's got to connect with the black clue that's right nearby. So we'll mark that in. We can now sketch out if this came left to do 1 down, 1 left, turn back up, turn right over. This would form a 2 with a 2, which is no good. So this has to immediately come up to form a valid shape of the loop. We've got a little more structure now on the left. This black always needs to have something that's 2 or more longer around it. It's got the 1 length segment to the left, so the segment that's 2 or larger is to the right. That completes that space here. Going to come back up to the top. This cell is now in a little corner. Again, can only come down or left. You see it forces it to be 1 cell long. When it does that, this cell here has to come down. And also, I said to the left, I meant to say to the right. This here has to come down and to the right. We can think a little bit about this clue and which directions it can go. If it came down, it would have to also then extend right because this is too long, and the only other direction that's 2 is the one there. If it came up and to the right, it would now have to eventually close back on the loop here. And so one thing I see is it's going to have one direction that's going left, and the other may or may not be straight up or straight across, but this will at least give us some start there. I guess the thing that I'm trying to think through is how to finish some of these parts of the loop and do them in a valid way. This single cell option can be 1, or it can be all the way over to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If this connected here to make 4, you'd see 1, 2, 3, 4. This connects straight down, but that's going through a black cell, which is no good. So a key deduction at the step of this puzzle is that these 2 segments don't connect. So this is only 1 tall, and that's going to make this connection here. We've now pinned this white in a way that it can immediately turn because it would form a square like so. So it does this. This has to come out, and it can come 1 or 3 or 4. It just can't come 2 as the length. This comes down. This black has to have at least 2 more line segments near it. Again, it always will have something that's shorter than the other, and so it has to come down to have such a longer segment. making these equal length, we now see we've got two ends that have to avoid each other. This black in the corner has a short leg, which is here, and a longer leg, which is there. This black in the corner has a short leg and a longer leg, which is at least 2. These ends now have to connect. We're back to this one. It could be 1 or longer. If it's 1, it can't go any further. It was going to close out here, so it's got to keep going and has to keep going to be at least 3 long because the way across is 2. This end has to dodge, and this has to keep dodging, so we get this. We now have most of the shape in the grid. We didn't mark this edge can't be used, but once we do, we see the remaining edges just connect, and that finishes the puzzle. So a lot of different steps here, but the basics of balanced loop, keeping white circles the same length, that actually gave a starting point in each of the corners. The interaction with black clues made this corner go out further, where the interaction with white clues made this stay at the size of 2 and work out from there. The key tricky deduction was actually up in the space where having 1 cell versus 2 more cells, if these all came together, you'd end up making 4 down, but that passes through a black clue. And so this space of a consequence of extending a loop and what it will do in the other direction with clues it interacts with was the kind of logic that got us through this puzzle. So hopefully you learn a little bit about balanced loop moderate puzzles like this one, and we'll see you again soon.